Book Chat for June. Thank you for joining us today. I'm Michelle Chan Santos with the Texas Center for the Book, and today I have the great honor of interviewing Kimberly Ridley and Rebecca Ray, who are the author and illustrator, respectively, of our 2025 Texas Great Read for Children, Matagorda Magic: The Hidden Life of a Texas Bay. A little bit about our guests. Kimberly Ridley is the author of the award-winning children's books The Secret Stream, The Secret Pool, The Secret Bay, and Extreme Survivors: Animals That Time Forgot. She is the former editor of Hope magazine and has written for many publications, including the Boston Globe, Christian Science Monitor, and Down East magazine. Rebecca Ray has illustrated numerous children's books, including The Secret Pool and The Secret Bay. She is the author of The Very Best Bed and Barely There, winner of the Moonbeam Children's Book Award for Environmental Issues. Thank you both so much for joining us today.
Thank you
Thanks for
so
having
much.
us.
Yes.
So, what inspired y'all to create Matagorda Magic? How did it come about? I know you're friends, and so just how did it happen?
Sure. Yeah, this Matagorda Magic has an interesting creation story. Partially kismet, and then I had some very specific inspirations in terms of writing the book and creating it. So this is our third collaboration
Oh,
on
wow.
book, Rebecca and I. And this started with a mysterious phone call in 2019. We both live in Maine, and the phone rang one beautiful day in October. And it was a woman who she said, "Hello, my name is Lori Beck, and I'm the founder of the Marsh Project in Palacios,
Ah,
Texas." I'd never heard of Palacios. It took me quite a while to learn how to pronounce it. And the Marsh Project is a nonprofit ecological education organization. It stands for the Matagorda Area Response for Sustainable Habitat.
okay.
So Lori Beck, founder of the Marsh Project, happened to be visiting a good friend up here in Maine, a couple towns over in Stonington, and happened upon one of our books, The Secret Bay, which is about the wildlife and wonders of a northern estuary. And
Okay.
Lori said, "Would y'all be interested in writing a book about a southern bay on the Gulf, and particularly our bay, Matagorda?" And I thought, well, gee, I don't know this person, but this is so intriguing. So, a very long story short, we had lunch, and I love the Gulf. I had only ever visited the other side, Florida.
Okay.
Just feel a very strong affinity for this beautiful, rich body of water habitat. So long story short, Lori offered to fly me to Palacios. It was March, when I got there, it was March 2020, 2 or 3 days before the
Oh,
pandemic was announced.
oh
Um,
my gosh.
so there I was in Palacios, not knowing if I'd get back to Maine when or how, but I stayed for a little bit over a week.
Mm.
And I fell in love with that bay, with the water, with the marshes, just the beauty and peace of the place, but also the incredible ecological richness and diversity. The bay is, and the marsh, full of incredible shorebirds, water birds. I'm a bird watcher. And
Okay.
it's also a very important habitat, rest stop for millions of migratory birds. So I visited the bay. I was like, how am I going to get home? But I just fell in love with the bay. And I said, I'm very interested in writing a book about your bay. And Lori, through the Marsh Project, raised the funds for me to
Oh,
do research and write the book.
okay.
So this was purely an educational project. I also had carte blanche. That was part of our agreement. I would tell the story, explore the bay. I visited a lot of the parts of the bay with the scientist Bill Balboa, who
Okay.
is executive director of the Matagorda Bay Foundation. And I, did research on seabirds and sea turtles, and we went to the aquarium. Um, And what I wanted to do was tell the ecology of a Gulf Coast bay, which really begins central to that are oysters. But I wasn't
Okay.
sure about a book on oysters. And so which are so interesting. You know, the oyster reefs are basically the coral reefs of bays in the Gulf.
Yeah.
They provide habitat, oysters clean the water. They're marvelous beings. But I was out with Bill one day, and in the distance, I saw these two beautiful shorebirds. They were black and white with these long orange bills.
Oh, wow.
And I knew they were oyster catchers. I fell in love with them, and I thought, this is how I'm going to tell the story of the Bay through the real life experiences and struggles of these birds who they were on this very low shell island on a nest. And I thought,
Oh,
what an exciting, charismatic species. So I
yeah.
was smitten with the oyster catchers, and the real inspiration for this book, because when I got there, gosh, this is such a big, beautiful, overwhelming place. But my essential inspiration was a book by Rachel Carson, who was one of my
Oh,
first
yeah.
shero. She summered in Maine, Under the Sea Wind. In Under the Sea Wind, Rachel Carson tells the story of the ocean through through animals who depend on it. So there's an
Oh,
osprey, a black skimmer, a mackerel. And what really moved me about those books is that they're scientifically accurate, but they tell a dramatic, moving, compelling story. She doesn't anthropomorphize any of those creatures. It's their, the story of the ocean through these, the eels who have these massive migrations and sanderlings. So that made me think, I'm going to tell this story through these incredibly beautiful and charismatic shorebirds. So
so
that's how
did
it
you?
started.
Oh, that's wonderful. So did you already know Rebecca would illustrate it because she illustrated your
Oh,
previous book?
that was my fervent, fervent dream. Um, at the time, I had conversations with Lori, and she's like, well, I haven't really thought much about illustration. And I said to her, Rebecca captures the
Mm.
soul, that her illustrations are not only scientifically accurate, her exquisite interpretation to me captures this word that an editor gave us years ago, which is the beinghood of an animal. So
Oh,
that
yeah.
that that was kind of that step took a while.
So for Rebecca, when she came to you with this, did you, because most of the other things you've done together are a little closer to home, right? Did you
Yes.
feel like what was your reaction? Did you think, oh my
Oh
gosh, I
my
can't go
gosh.
to Texas
Well,
and sketch birds?
well,
Yeah.
I will tell you, as you know now, Kimberly and I have had a long related and great friendship. And when I say that, I mean we relate on many topics from makeup to clothing and to the natural world. And we would have she is the only one that I can call and say and express with my heart how much I love the discovery of tadpole lips, are the most beautiful lips, and she would understand. And so Kimberly and I, that friendship grew, and the fantasy of working together. And our first book together, I don't know if y'all can see this, The Secret Pool, about vernal pools. And then the next one was The Secret Bay, about estuaries. And so when Kimberly approached me and asked if I had any interest in doing this book, this project of the Texas Gulf Coast, I went, oh, I love it because I'm inspired, so inspired by the Gulf, every Gulf and any Gulf, and the wildlife around it and in it. And as I understood it, as Kimberly was saying, she had been in contact with Lori and Fred Beck, who are responsible for making this book come to fruition. And it was this decision that she had about she wasn't sure about an illustrator and was thinking of some illustrators in her area, I believe, if I can remember right. And then I quickly got together all my samples of my book work and my cards and my prints and sent them to her and waited a bit. And it turned out that she felt that Kim and I would be a great team. And I was so excited. And then COVID happened. So it
Oh,
was a little wait before it all started to evolve. So it's been several years. It took a long time for the writing part and the research part. And then I start doing the research part and the drawing and redrawing and learning new creatures. So that was an exciting way that we got started. And Kim explained it so well.
yeah, that's wonderful. And it really is a work of art for
Mm.
people watching that haven't read it yet. It really, between the text and the and every page is just gorgeous.
Oh, thank you.
So, how do y'all feel about being the book being chosen as a Texas Great Read? It is the first time we've had a work by author and illustrator from Maine selected for the Texas Great Read, but we just all love this book so much for shining a light on it's a really unique and beautiful part of Texas.
Oh, thank you.
You're
I,
welcome.
I have to say, I was flabbergasted that Texas chose our book for your great read, and so honored. And to share a little bit, I'm smiling and doubly humbled because our first book, The Secret Pool, that Rebecca just showed you, was chosen. This came out, I think, in 2013. It was chosen as the main great read in 2023. So this is our second great read in a different state, but I'm honored beyond words and grateful, and really thrilled that this honor will, I mean, the best part of this for me is that this book, Matagorda Magic, will get into the hands of so many young readers and teachers, and families, that I'm thrilled. I couldn't honestly could not believe it, when we received your note. So I'm very humbled and very delighted.
We
Yeah.
were very happy to select this. Rebecca, did you want to add anything?
Yes, I was very surprised, as I was saying to you earlier, and so excited because it seemed and grateful because in my mind it furthers a recognition of Matagorda Bay
Hmm.
into so many and this special place that I learned so much about, that we both learned so much about. So thank you.
Yes.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. You're so welcome. You had mentioned, Kimberly, that you came to Texas and went to the Bay with Bill Balboa. And did you both come here eventually, or just you, Kimberly? Or
Yeah, it was just me at first because we weren't, this book really evolved as we were going along. And in the process of the research, I also, another great collaborator and inspiration for the story, is Dr. Susan Heath, who was the conservation director of the Gulf Coast Bird Observatory at the time. And she's done extensive research on American oyster catchers. So all of the trials and tribulations that the oyster catcher family experience in the book are directly from Sue's research. So yeah, so I had the wonderful opportunity of visiting, and then the pandemic happened, so it was just hard to travel. Um, but Rebecca did enormous research, and Rebecca, you can speak to that, and spoke with scientists. And Lori sent you, I think she sent you a box of oyster shells. She sent you all kinds of
I'm gonna say,
material to create your art.
Oh, it's so wonderful that you mentioned that, Kimberly. I love those oyster shells. They're so different from any oyster shells, their own species. But I did not go to Matagorda
Oh,
Bay, and but as a young teen, my family of seven lived aboard a 47-foot Vineyard cruiser
oh wow.
and along the Florida Gulf Coast.
Oh,
And since then, have been visiting in the lower bend a place called Cedar Key with a population of only 700. And I fell in love as Kimberly with the American oyster catcher. There's
oh,
so many similar birds, from the osprey, sandhill cranes, roseate spoonbills, and then the fish of red and black drum, and the all the mullet and dolphin, hammerheads, everything um, that I sort of grew to love then. Um, I told Kimberly it was like I was putting my toes in the sand again
oh,
and
yeah.
going back in these memories of, of that time working on this book. And then I talked to Lori Beck, and Fred Beck would send me beautiful photos. And Bill Balboa was a great help. And if I had a question, I could write to him and he'd send me pictures. And then I watched many, I'd take my popcorn and I'd sit and watch many fishing videos of Matagorda Bay and Oyster Lake so that I could get a sense of the fish being caught and what the habitat looked like. And so I had a wealth of information that it just felt natural. And I will always remember and thank Lori Beck for how she said it was. The second page that she really seemed to love. Let me give you an example. Um, Introducing the feeling of the place and the oyster catcher. I wonder if you can see it at all.
Oh yeah. No, I have it and I can just open up to that. Yeah. Oh, it's
Yes,
beautiful with that
we
kind of
love that.
sunset shot.
She says that feels like the place, and that made me feel
Oh
more
yeah.
confident as I went along.
You can kind of smell the salt water when you look at it.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, I love that.
So what surprised each of you when you were working on the book?
Oh, Kim,
Oh gosh, I think one thing that really surprised me when I first arrived on Matagorda Bay, again, it's just this expanse of kind of gray green water. You can't see into it very at that time of year. I was there in March,
Mm,
and the grassland, it's just the vast Spartina marshes. And what really surprised me was how full, I mean, I knew there were, I'm a bird watcher, so I knew there were birds there, but how full of life, how bursting with life that estuary and that bay is. So when the
mm,
water calmed, it was quite windy and choppy when I first got there, but when the water calmed, you could see just schools of fish. You could see the marks, the V's in the water, and the ripples that these vast schools of fish were making, fish jumping, pelicans dive bombing, so many gorgeous egrets,
mm,
and again, the oyster catchers. And I think just that I just had that sense of those birds on that low, like I said, on that low shell island, um, their determination, their
mhm,
resilience, not just their beauty, but just here they were, and just, in this very fragile place, incubating their eggs and raising their chicks. But it was really the extraordinary, I just, started thinking about, okay, so why are there so many birds? Well, there's so many birds because there's so many fish and there's so much to eat. And why are there so
mhm,
many fish? And it's because they have so much to eat. It's that richness and that biodiversity. I really felt this burgeoning sense of burgeoning life. And again, I knew that kind of in my mind that the Gulf teemed with
mhm.
wildlife.
Oh, but when you see it in
But
person,
when
it's
I
amazing.
saw it in person, it just it really blew me away. I think that was the first big surprise. And the second big surprise was the very strong conservation ethic that
Oh,
so many
good.
people share, especially along the Texas coast. As I did my research connecting with the Gulf Coast Bird Observatory, coastal bend bays and estuaries, the Lone Star Alliance, the Audubon groups, in a huge Texas master naturalist organization.
Yes,
I
massive.
was
Yeah.
I was really moved and surprised and struck by a commitment, a really great commitment to conservation, in the regions where I was doing research and visiting.
No, that's
And that's
wonderful.
very inspiring, deeply inspired. It continues to inspire me. I was just in Texas last week, on running a writing conference for young people
Oh,
about
cool.
nature. So that I was just deeply moved by that. Yeah.
And I liked how you included, there's a sort of pull-out box about the Christmas Day Audubon count and how they had
Yes.
the
Yes.
most birds ever in that count were in Matagorda Bay area.
Yes, in
I really,
Matagorda
yeah,
County. Yeah,
yeah.
they have the record, the Audubon Christmas bird count record for quite a number of years. And that was also, I must confess, a major enticement. I'm an avid birder. But yes, it's such an important and vital place. Yeah.
Mhm.
And Rebecca, how about you? What surprised you when you were
Oh,
working on it?
oh gosh, I love what you said, Kim. And I was surprised so many things as I learned oysters have a heart. I was so
Oh,
excited about learning about it, not just a muscle, but the whole internal organs, and that one oyster can filter and clean 50 gallons of water. And
oh
I just
wow.
said, oh my gosh, it became important to me that this would be something I can share, as the oyster is the backbone, so to speak, in my mind, that it would be such a healthy example of a healthy and habitat
Mhm.
environment, along with the surprise of the organisms, many organisms, but the grass, seeing a grass shrimp um, is an indicator of a healthy estuary. And so that was just a few of the things that I loved that made an impact on me.
So the librarians on our selection committee really loved how you paired science information with the story about the bird family and their adventures. So as the author, Kimberly, how do you find a balance between conveying information, educational information, but also making the book fun?
Yeah, that's something I think about for all my books. It's an initial question. So the first I see all of my books stories as an invitation. So I knew that if I just presented a book about an estuary and information, it would not be engaging. And I know that all birds have dramatic lives, and they're resilient and inspiring. So I first started with the story. I had in my mind the story of I had to tell a story of the bay and the ecology. And like Rachel Carson and Under the Sea Wind, I needed characters to tell the story.
Mhm.
So the story comes first for me, and it has to be entertaining, it has to be engaging. I want the story to be an invitation and something that children can relate to. So it starts there, but as I'm doing research, there's so much more to put in there. So I organized this book and several of my others to grow with children. So
Mhm.
it's created as a read aloud, the story of the oyster catchers trying to raise a chick on the beach, and then separating out this rich, interweaving it with information about, what is an estuary, I thought about what are the key things that I want kids and their families to know about.
Mhm.
So in addition to shorebirds, the ecology of an oyster reef, as Rebecca was saying, oysters help clean the water. So they, pump 50 gallons through one oyster cleans 50 gallons of water.
Wow.
So it's basically I write these books, it's layered text with this main dramatic, entertaining story to pull children through and a real life story. And then they can, as they choose and as they grow older, dig deeper into more
Okay.
information. And I also really tend to I love back matter. I love creating back
Mhm.
matter. I love using back matter. So making sure there's also really rich back matter. Again, for kids to learn as they're ready, as they grow. Yeah.
Absolutely. And it's a great book for a school library, I would think, because it seems like it would work really well with a lot of different lessons. So Matagorda Magic is written for 8 to 12-year-olds. How are all your books kind of in that age range of audience? And
Yes. Yeah.
how did the two of you settle on that
Yeah.
as a sort of target audience age?
Sure. Yeah. And maybe a little bit younger too.
Hmm.
But my feeling is that right around 8 years old is when children, 8 or 9, really start to um, develop a sense of agency and a sense of caring, a sense of justice, a
Hmm.
sense of stewardship. They still enjoy stories, but they really want to know, what can I do in the, like they're figuring out what can I do in the world.
Okay.
So I feel like that age range is a really is and on up as they get older. They're acquiring not only writing and reading skills, but skills in the world. They're so fully immersed in the world and want to engage with it and want to know, what can I do to help it. I find that to be a very common question among, especially kids 8, 9, 10 years old. So that's really the target age range. They're interested in story. They're sponges. They want to learn about the world, and I think they want tools to be able to engage and get involved and help. Yeah.
No, that's wonderful. How about for you, Rebecca, when you're creating your illustrations, what do you appreciate about that,
Oh,
kids about that age?
I totally love what Kimberly said, and I always feel like art engages learning no matter what the age is. And so with my own work, um, um, and especially with working with Kim in the secret pool, for instance, um, to tell her poetic story, um, for read aloud for young children in more of picture book format.
What do you hope students come away with after reading this book? Like you've talked a little bit about that's a really good age for becoming motivated to appreciate where you live and to help take better care of it. So what do you both each hope, sorry, what do you each hope students come away with it after reading this book, and what do you hope their parents learn from it as well?
Well, I hope what students come away with, students and their, I always say I write books for kids and their grown-ups. So students, kids, teachers, and parents and families, is I hope this book opens their eyes to the wonder all around us. I often, I jokingly say that I feel like my goal with my books and my teaching is to incite wonder.
Mm.
And I have a friend who says, well, you can't incite wonder. Wonder is naive, it's childlike, it's
Oh
soft.
no.
And I really beg to differ. To me, wonder is a human birthright. And a great way to experience it is to step away from the screen and step outside the door, which is what
Mhm.
I intend all of my books to be an invitation to put down your screen and go outside. And again, so inspired by Rachel Carson, who spoke about wonder. I don't know if I can get the quote exactly but her wish was for every child at birth to be granted a sense of wonder. And I think this is the quote: a sense of wonder so indestructible that it would last throughout their lives as an unfailing antidote to the boredom and disenchantment of later years,
Mm.
the preoccupation with things that are artificial, and the alienation from the sources of our strength. So to me, wonder is just a powerful, important, innate gift that we have as humans that I feel we can be distracted from. So it's really I hope kids come away with, and their families, a sense of wonder. Wow, I didn't know that there were so many creatures here and we live in such a beautiful place. And again, it is to inspire stewardship.
Mhm.
But I think that love and wonder come before action and stewardship. So we start with love, which lead and wonder, which lead to curiosity, which leads to building knowledge, which leads to joy and celebration and care. So these are all things that I hope our readers get from our books.
So, what are suggestions you each have for school librarians and public librarians on
Hmm.
activities they can do with students and families in conjunction with reading Matagorda Magic?
Hmm. Do you want to start, Rebecca, or do you want me to?
Yes, I'd love to. This is an idea that I've been thinking about, and I'd like to try myself in workshops. Is in the book Matagorda Magic, there's several creatures that were discovered and learning about the bay, and many of them are all labeled and but aren't written in Kimberly's writing of
Oh,
the story or the science part. It, I'm so happy about the way everything is labeled. And I would love and then love to do this, but would love to see, say, you take a character. I love this page so much. If you can see this, there's a little creature called the skillet fish.
okay.
I don't know if you can see him. Can you see my finger pointing?
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah. Yes, I can see that. Yeah.
He is the shape of a frying pan, and he's only maybe 3 inches, but I made him the size he is so you could see him well, and the characteristics, and he eats bristle worms and scale worms, and he has this wonderful disc that is like a suction to the shells, and also you might see him in aquariums as well. But say, for instance, you took this skillet fish and or any of the creatures, and you did your own fact finding, and
Oh,
you did your own research, and created anything from a poem, a short story, fictional or non-fictional, and and did a drawing interpretation. And as I tell my children in all the workshops, we all have our own style, and and to do their own interpretation of one of the creatures in the book that's not mentioned but is labeled. That's just one idea that
that's
I've
a wonderful idea. That's a wonderful idea.
be, and I would love to see it.
So, and so just building on what Rebecca said, I did the first Wild Writers Water Workshop for fourth and fifth graders,
Okay.
Smithville and Palacios. And what we did something similar. The kids had a field trip, but what we ended up doing is kids picked a creature from the book. We focused mostly on birds, and we made mini zines. So little
Oh, cool.
one page. They're made out of one sheet of paper, eight-page magazines with facts, and the kids did illustration. And
Oh,
that was
wonderful.
really wonderful. I probably will be coming back to do that next year, if librarians are interested, or school librarians, next spring in conjunction with the Matagorda Bay Bird Fest.
Oh,
So the
great.
zines are a really fun thing, but a couple of other fun simple things that librarians and school librarians can do is a virtual field trip, just or
Oh,
scavenger hunt
fun.
in the book. So going through page by page, how many birds are there? Where do you can you find a bird with for younger kids with all of the different bird bills and
Mm.
adaptation would be fun to do. How many invertebrates can you find? And then the other thing is the back matter is oh, and actually a couple of other things. So there is a section, and let's look closer how you can help
Oh,
um,
okay.
for communities that are on the coast. A beach cleanup or making signs or making information
Hmm.
for people. A big one is fishing line. How can kids empowering children as environmental educators, which was the focus of the workshop I just did in Palacios. I think there are lots of opportunities there. And then the back matter is so rich. There's a cast of characters, which gives information on the habitat, the size of the birds. There's an estuary food web. So there's a lot that can be done
With the book,
that
yes.
the back matter.
So anything else you guys would like to add? And this is sort of the last question in this portion. And then
Mhm.
I'll stop the recording. And then when we broadcast it, we'll do Q&A after that part.
Okay. Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah.
Yeah.
I really wanted to start. I wanted the first words out of my mouth to be, thank you, dear librarians.
mm,
Without a public library, I grew up in Springville, Maine, and my father took us to the Springville Public Library once a week.
aw,
And if I hadn't become a reader, I was a voracious reader, I never would have become a writer.
mm,
And more than that, I had schooling, classroom schooling, but without the public library, I would not have become educated or imaginative or creative. So I just want to say a heartfelt gratitude to librarians.
Yes, I feel exactly the same. And the memories of going to the library with I'm the oldest of five kids, and we would just be dropped off after school, and the fun we had in the library. And now our library in Blue Hill is amazing, and the events and the way it involves the community. But I really wanted to say um, that I have learned that the more you learn, I had to write this down so I remember to say it. The more you learn, the more you care and love what you have learned about. And in return, you will want to protect what you love. And to celebrate the wondrous life around us as we get to know it by learning how to live, love, and respect it. That is important to me and doing the work we do. Thank you.